Hi, this is Laura. This is about the transition plan. I'll go over the rubric for you. This is an assignment that is worth 25 points. You have the option of working with a partner if you choose to do that for this assignment. The goal for this assignment is for you to understand pretty fully all of the pieces that take place in when a student is transitioning from one program to another, from preschool to elementary, from elementary to middle school, or even from one class to another class, from one grade to another grade, all of the things that have to take place in order for that transition to be successful. And if you walk through this rubric with me, all of the things that you have to outline are actually included in this process. Like your other assignments, you're welcome to use this one as a template. This particular one might flow a little bit better as a paper. You can make that decision for yourself, but let me read it with you. The purpose for this rubric is to guide you through the appropriate transition for a student with ASD in an applied context. Now, ideally, what we would be doing is, if this were a spring course, you would actually be working through a live a real live transition process. It's pretty unusual for these types of transitions to be happening in the fall. If you have such a transition happening, ideally that's what you would use. But probably what you'll be talking about is one that you have done, or for a student that you have now preparing for the transition that he's going to make to another class next year. Or you could even use a hypothetical situation here. Ideally, we'd like you to be using a real student with ASD with real challenges and real goals and real objectives and a real IEP, but you might be imagining what his next transition would be and how you would prepare for that, if that makes sense to you. If you don't understand that, please email me your questions and we'll talk about it. The first thing you need to do is provide the information about the student with ASD that you have for this project. And this piece of it is worth 8.5 points. This basic information, you want the age, gender, his grade, if he has any significant medical history, such as a seizure disorder or cerebral palsy or something like that, that would be included here. What's his family background for a 0.5 point? That's important to note too. And what's his level of academic achievement? Specifically, what are his strengths academically? What's something that is currently working successfully with him? And what's something that's a challenge for him? Same goes for communication skills and communication strengths, any successful strategies that you're working with him, and any difficulties that he has in the communication area. For social skills, same 3 bullets. Also for behavior and sensory, all of these areas that might be impacted for a student with autism. The idea is that this student is currently with you, and he's going to be with a new set of educators next year who may know nothing about him. So as much detail as possible about the strengths, strategies, and weaknesses in these areas that can travel with him to his new teacher. The second piece that you're going to identify is coming from your IEP. Looking at the domain that you're identifying for transition. Are you concerned about him transitioning because of his sensory skills, because of his motor skills, because of his academic skills? A person with autism, you're not necessarily looking at every issue for the transition. You're looking at the thing that you think that that the new team is going to have difficulty with if they're not aware of the details. So which domain are you looking at? And where is this student transitioning to? Is it preschool to elementary? Is it middle school to high school? So on and so forth. Is it from first grade to second grade, one program to another program? The next piece of this is what's the goal from the IEP that you're talking about in relation to the transitions, and obviously there may be more than one. And how did you support that goal? How do you support the transition for that individual and for his family? What pieces did you put in place to make sure that he would transition well to the next environment? What type of collaboration took place between you and the receiving team, your team and the receiving team? And what are the necessary supports to continue a successful transition? I'll tell you, just as an example, that when I was a team leader for the preschool program for children with autism, and we would transition students from my program to the elementary program, my process started in November. And the first thing that I would do is, in November at parent-teacher conferences, I would start speaking to parents about what type of program, what they envision for their student the next year. Did they see a more of a general education program? Was it looking more like we were going to continue in an ASD program? Were we thinking of going to kindergarten, or had they been held back a year? Maybe we're going to go to first grade. We started talking about all of those details with the family in November. I also started looking for placements and finding the appropriate educational placement for the student. Sometimes I handpicked teachers, sometimes I had to find different programs around the county. All of that started happening in November. By February, we had the receiving team come to our preschool program to look at our students and to talk with our teachers and to collaborate that way, and just to kind of see what those students were going to look like. By March or April, our students would go to their school, and the students and their parents would go to that school, to the receiving school, and to see what it looked like, take a tour of the program, look at the curriculum, understand what they were walking into. Several visits would take place over the summer for the student to get acclimated to the new program. By the fall, the student would go there, and in most cases, I would actually meet the students there on the first day, as I was non-load bearing. I could do that. That's kind of an optional thing, but we follow up all the way through November with phone calls to parents. We would call and check up on the student, touch base with the classroom teacher, see if everything was in place. And in the meantime, there's a lot of paperwork sharing that goes back and forth. The teacher reports that go to the receiving team, the communications by email back and forth, and all about me sheet, a sheet about all of the things the student likes and is interested in. It's a very complex process, and that's just the way that I did that particular process. So I'm looking for as much detail, including minimally those things that I just discussed. I want to know what you would do to support this student in his next transition. And finally, you're going to be reflecting on your experience or on the process. So you're going to write about your experience. And again, I understand that this might not be a real live experience at this point in time. What you learned from thinking about this and how you would do it differently next time if this is something. You could also be talking about a transition that you had done in the past, and what you would be doing differently would be something that would come out here. And of course, we're looking for your writing style. If you're a person who has trouble with writing, please run in through the writing clinic at MSU, because I don't like to see people lose points for things like just poor writing style. That's something that you should have down by grad school. Okay, questions with that, text me by my cell phone number 734-674-6823, or just shoot me an email.